artists, welcome to your Mason Jars and Flowers painting. In front of you, you should have your canvas long ways like so. Also, you should have a cup of water, a paper towel, a large brush, a smaller brush. For your colors, you should have your dark blue, black, pink, purple, dark green, light green, brown, and white. I do suggest a plate for this one because we will be mixing just a little bit. So if you wanted to grab a plate, you can. You're also welcome to push pause on this video whenever you need to kind of catch up. So take your time and have fun. The first thing we're going to do for our class is we are going to take our two brushes and swirl them around in our cup of water and get them nice and clean for our painting class. And then just pat them on your paper towel. Our first step for our painting is painting all of our canvas completely black. So I do want you to grab your bigger brush and the black paint. Just completely cover your canvas side to side with black paint. So I'm just going to completely cover my canvas. Make sure you have no bumps on there. We will also be painting the four sides of our canvas as well. So pretty easy first step. Go a long way side to side. Make sure there's no white peeking through. Canvas so it doesn't make that wiggly noise. A big brush, again, filling up your canvas side to side. If you want, once you're done, if you want to go in there and do a second coat, if you feel like you still have some white peeking through, just be sure to give your paint at least 3 or 4 minutes to dry, and then you can go over it and lay a second coat on top. And we're just kind of building our background first before we build anything on top. As well. It's kind of painting side to side. Again, very carefully paint the bottom and the top part, making sure there's no bumps. You want to go over it and smooth it out. Getting your background completely covered with black paint. And before we build anything on top of our black background, we do want to make sure it's nice and dry. So we don't want it to be shiny at all. We want to make sure black paint is completely dry before we build anything on top. It's gonna go over this and smooth it out, and then I'll start working on the top part. Completely done. Perfect. And I'm gonna wash and dry my big brush. And again, like I said, I'm gonna give it a couple minutes to dry. So I'm gonna push pause on my video and then come back in a couple minutes once the black paint is not as shiny. At this time, after you have done all the four sides, you have the background completely covered in black. Again, if you want to do 2 coats, you can. You can also clean out your water now that it has a lot of black paint in it. Be a good time to kind of give your canvas a rest, switch your water, and come back in a couple minutes. All right, you guys, see you in a bit. All right, artists, we're back, and our background is completely black, including the 4 sides. And again, if you wanted to go back in and give it a second coat, make sure it's a nice solid black, you can. Next thing we're gonna do is we are gonna build our mason jar kind of over here to the right, leaving a little bit of space from the very right side of our canvas. Building about that high up so we can build up a little bit later with our branches and our flowers. So let me show you how to kind of begin that step, and whenever you're ready, you're welcome to jump in. I will start off with my little brush. I'm just gonna wash it and dry it just in case. And I'm gonna dip a little bit into my dark blue and my light blue, so they're both kind of working on my brush. So, excuse me, dark blue and white, so they're both kind of working on my brush. I'm creating this light blue. So small brush, dark blue, a little bit of light blue, both on my brush at the same time. I am gonna work off a little bit off the edge of my canvas, a little bit off the right. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna come up just so with a little bit of a straight line. And again, I'm just gonna kind of be working down, creating the right side of my jar. It's not a complete solid, I'm just kind of sweeping here and there. And I'm gonna come out a little bit so I can build the left side of my jar. It's about that far out, maybe 2.5 inches. I'm just gonna be sweeping down. It doesn't have to be a solid. I'm just gonna go in there and sweep down with my small brush, like so. Make sure it's parallel, pretty even to the same height as my other line. I've made the number 11. So far, so good. Once I'm done, I'm gonna come in on both sides just a little bit, kind of creating the outside a little bit round, just on the edge, coming in there and making just a little bit round, coming up as well. So white and dark blue, you're just kind of creating a lighter blue on your brush. Come in just a little bit more, maybe come in just a little bit more, like so. Make sure you don't have any bumps with your paint. kind of smooth it out. Once you're done, you're gonna kind of create 3 like little ridges on each side. So I'm gonna come up a little bit higher. I'm gonna 1, 2, 3. So it's almost like a backward C. 1, 2, 3. On the left side, I'm gonna create a C shape. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna come down on the very top and just come tilt down, then come back up to meet the other side. So again, I'm just scratchy, short movements, dip down, and I came back up. Just a little bit of a dip. And on the top part, I'm gonna come up just a little bit, and then come down. Just a little bit too. And then I'm gonna go in there and kind of, I'm gonna get my brush a little bit wet, it's a little bit dry. A water tap. I'm gonna make sure those ridges, each section kind of meet up with the other side. So I'm gonna add some blue and white, dip down a little bit, and just be sure it reaches the other side. So that one area, second area, and third area. Again, it doesn't have to be solid lines. You're just kind of moving your brush from side to side. Just a little bit more for those. There you go. So where they kind of end the bottom, I'm going to meet them up. 1, 2, 3. Go in there and kind of so a nice mason jar shape. So all I did was make my 2 lines. 1, 2, came up on the right side and on the left side coming in. Then I made my 3 C shapes, my 3 backwards C shapes. I'm gonna come up to the top and dip down, come from the top, dip up, and then I had the bottom part of those C backwards C shapes kind of meet up a little bit. Once I was done, I'm gonna just wipe off my brush just a little bit so there's not too much blue on there. I'm gonna go back to white. So I didn't wash my brush, I just kind of took off some of the blue that was on there and I just went back to white. Maybe tap some off on your paper towel. You don't want too much on there. And I'm just gonna sweep some white on there. I'm gonna kind of work a little bit more off of the left side and the right side. I want it to look a little bit thicker. So I'm just gonna come off a little bit on the left side and the right side. Kind of extending my brush strokes out a little bit further. So as you can see, the white on my brush is coming out a little bit more off the edge. Same with this right here. I'm just gonna work out a little bit more, a little bit of white on my brush. Kind of working off the sides a little bit more. It's gonna look a little bit thicker. Those C and backwards C shapes are back. So I'm gonna go in there and work it out. And then the bottom part where it just kind of dipped down. The top part where it kind of went up. Then I want to go in there and I go over those light blue lines. I'm just kind of sweeping over them. Just kind of line it up just a little bit. So I just went out just a little bit off my light blue line, and it's okay if they overlap just a little bit too, but you kind of have the two working together. And if you ever feel like you did mess up, so for instance right here, if I wanted to get rid of that white, I can let it dry, and guess what, I can just go back to my black paint and just kind of clean it up a little bit. Same with any other places you want to just kind of clean up. Kind of thin out the lines. So I do want to see a little bit of the blue, a little bit of the white. If you want to clean up any areas, you can go in there with your black. Once those areas are dry, just kind of clean them up. If you lost those 3 sections, the lip of your jar, you can always let it dry and then go back and add a little bit of black between them. So again, I do see a little bit of the light blue and the white working together, but I do want to clean up my lines just a little bit, and I can use my black to kind of go in there and clean it up just a little bit as well. And the blue and white are working together. They're kind of blending together at some areas and kind of overlapping here and there, because you don't want it to be like a perfect line. You have those two kind of working together. All right. Take your time, clean up the jar if you want to kind of pause the video if you're still working on this. But again, you have the blue and white working together at this point. Right. Once you're done, you can wash and dry your small brush, and you're going to start working on your branches. So wash and dry your small brush, and you're going to use your small brush to build the branches. And again, remember, the harder you push on your small brush, the thicker the lines become. So we want to be on the tippy toes of our small brush. Don't push too hard. And I get it wet, and you can even bring it to a twist too, so it's a little bit more pointy. All right, I'm gonna go in there with my brown, and I'm gonna start building some branches down here. With your branches, you're gonna kind of imagine some upside down Y shapes where they kind of break off. And again, you're sweeping your brush a lot too, to where you're not making super solid lines. You're just kind of sweeping. I'm gonna go in there and just kind of make this upside down Y shape by just sweeping. So I came down a little bit to the right, kind of came down straight, swept that way and that way to kind of break off that Y shape. I can go in there and maybe have a little just branch off here to the left, a branch here a little bit longer off to the right. Maybe another one over here where it kind of breaks off into a Y shape, come down diagonal. You come down here. Have one more kind of coming down this way as well. I'm just gonna get them a little bit longer. Now that I have them kind of planned out. Again, you don't want them to be too solid. You still want to kind of see that black peeking through. So I have my 2 upside down Y shapes, and then I have some sweeps of brown just coming down. And look at the length between here and here. Ooh, excuse me. Look at the length between the very bottom of the canvas and where my branches kind of end. Cover that up with some black. Once you're done, you can go back to your small brush and your brown paint, and we're going to start building our branches out. I'm going to start in kind of a clockwise motion. I'm going to start here and go to the right, building out my brown branches. So if you just want to watch for a moment and jump in whenever you're ready, be sure you're really building out, because we want to make sure we have a lot of flowers. So I'm going to start here to the left of my jar, definitely a little bit past the middle. I'm going to come up. I'm just kind of sweeping with my brush, just little small sweeps. I'm going to dip down a little bit. So I came up. Just kind of small little sweeping movements, just barely on the tiptoe of my brush. I made this long line. And I'm going to have some branches that break off. Again, kind of having that feeling of a Y shape. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to sweep that way. Maybe creating some more branches on the bottom. Coming back a little bit, maybe creating another branch going out that way. So I came up and just swept down and diagonal. Came back a little bit and swept out. and came down and came up, just sweeping so I get those nicer thin feathery ends. Then I'm gonna start a little bit up from this branch. I'm gonna build up a little bit, again, just kind of sweeping with my brush, coming up. Oops. Coming past the branch that I just made. And I'm gonna dip down a little bit. Again, passing the one that I just made. I'm gonna break it off and come up a little bit. So again, that broken Y shape. Come back, just kind of sweep down a little bit. I'm gonna come up, sweep up a little bit. Maybe make some more sweeping up a little bit there as well. Perfect. All right, and I'm going in a clockwise motion. I'm gonna start a little bit over to the right, and this one is gonna build up and diagonal. So I'm gonna come up, maybe a little bit of a curve here and there. So just, I went up, kind of dipped down, swept out. This one you do have a big break off of a Y at the end. I'm gonna kind of go closer to the middle and kind of reach out and over, not passing this one, but as you can see, it just kind of came down and swept out with that Y shape with a little bit of a curve right here. Perfect. And I am gonna kind of break off some smaller branches off this one. So this bottom one, I'm just gonna go up and sweep. This one over here to the right, I'm just gonna go up and sweep, and maybe a little bit further out and sweep, like so. And then I'm gonna kind of work more in this middle area. I'm gonna go up, a little bit of a curve, maybe coming out a little bit to the left. I'm gonna come up a little bit too, a little bit of a curve. So that one is just one big main area for a Y. Then I'm gonna come down here and sweep out. So it came down closer to the kind of the lip of the jar and just kind of swept up. And it does look up here, we just have just a random sweep kind of floating in the air. We're gonna create a white flower here, but right here I just kind of swept up to fill the space a little bit more. And I'm gonna sweep up to the left a little bit, sweep up to the right a little bit. Almost creating that Y shape, but I have this line in the middle as well. And I'll show you how we fill that in later. And after this one and this one, I'm gonna go off to the right a little bit. So I'm gonna drag it to the right. Shorter than this one. I'm gonna break off into the Y by going to the left a little bit. So I have that Y shape. And then in the middle of this one, I'm gonna kind of break off and go to the right and go up so I can fill in this area a little bit more. Gonna go to the left a little bit with that sweep, go to the right, so I have that Y shape again. And kind of come to the middle down, go off to the side a little bit, and then break off of this one a little bit as well. And the last one, kind of over here to the right, it just kind of breaks off into a Y shape again. Going down a little bit of a dip down, and then kind of starting right here and coming up, flicking the end of my brush to create that Y shape. Then kind of mess with it. So you have all your branches out. Perfect. And while I still have a little bit of brown on my brush, and again, once you're done with this, take your time. You're going to add a little bit of white to that brown on your small brush. Tap some off. You can go in there and add some just little areas of highlights, just little sweeps here and there, kind of randomly. Find little areas where you just can sweep some bits of brown and white. Just be sure you're going in the direction of the branch. Maybe one or two on each kind of branch that comes out from the jar. But I just add a little bit of white, tapped it on my paper towel, just added some sweeps of white here and there, including some in the jar. And again, if you got too much white on there, just let it dry. And then you can go back over with some brown to build on top of it. Perfect. All right. Then once you're done with that, you can wash and dry your brush. And we're gonna let our branches dry for just a moment before we go back on there and do anything else. Before we do put our flowers on there again, we do want it to be nice and dry. I'm gonna use my small brush, but you can use your big brush if you want. I'm gonna go in there and mix some pink and white to kind of create a lighter pink. And all I'm gonna be doing is just kind of pushing down on the side of my smaller brush. You can do this with your bigger brush. I would recommend just doing a practice run on your paper towel and see which one you like better. So I'll show you, for instance, on my paper towel what my flower is going to look like. I'm going to start off, and again, if you don't have a paper plate, you can grab one. I'm going to start off by mixing a scoop of pink and a scoop of white and just kind of getting a nice light pink. I do want to go a little bit darker, so I'm going to go and grab another scoop of dark pink. So 2 pinks, scoops of pink, 1 scoop of white so far. That's my recipe. I'm going to start off with that. So 2 scoops of pink, 1 scoop of white. With my small brush, I'm going to mix it and kind of wipe off the sides of my small brush so I don't have any big chunks. And after my branch is dry, I'm going to go in there and just kind of push down on the side of my brush where I want my light pink flowers to be. So again, I let it dry. 2 pinks, 1 white. I have my recipe. I'm going to use my smaller brush. And then I'm going to go in there and just kind of push down with my smaller brush the side of my, just make sure you're just kind of moving your brush. I'm just kind of pushing down and coming in towards my branch. Just building my flowers. They almost have like that V shape too. They come out this way and this way. So when you're building your flowers, just be sure that you are kind of thinking of that V kind of shape. So some going to the right and some going to the left. This one right here, leave it alone. We're going to add some white on here a little bit later, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So 2 scoops of pink, 1 scoop of white, mix. And I'm just kind of pushing down the side of my small brush, adding flowers, avoiding this area. Just kind of pushing down on my brush. And you can add as many of these as you want. And then you can always go back to your recipe of 2 pinks, 1 white. And I do feel like the more flowers you do, the better it looks. So be sure you have a good amount. And remember, you are going to go in there with purple and your greenery as well. To kind of have in your mind how you're going to have all those work together. Push down the side. a good amount. I'm constantly moving my brush. If you need to go back in there and make more pink, you can. Be sure you have a good amount on there. You can even have some falling down, so I can even have like 1 or 2 just on either side of my jar, just kind of falling down, kind of almost like they're pointing down, kind of falling in that direction as well. So I added some kind of falling down in there. You can also add a little bit of white to your brush while there's still pink on it. Maybe tap some off on your paper towel so you don't have too much. You can go in there and just add some sweeps of white in your pink, but you do want to make sure your pink is a little dry before you go in there and add some white highlights here and there, or else it'll blend too much. So if you wanted to go in there, add a little bit of white, just a little bit of sweeps to the left, to the right. You can add some white on top of the pink here and there to add some light, kind of like how we did with our brown branches. Again, be sure to give them a couple minutes to dry before you go in there and add the white. I'm just kind of moving from one step to the next, so I would truly give mine a minute or 2 to dry before I added any white on top. Just kind of adding little sweeps of white here and there, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. Just kind of jumping from one to the next. And you don't have to put them on all of them. You can just kind of put them randomly. And once you're done, you can go ahead and wash and dry your small brush. Be sure to get all that pink off of there. And then next we're going to go to our purple with the same idea, but we're not going to mix anything with our purple. The purple, it's on its own. So purple, small brush, and then we're going to go in there. Same kind of idea with the V shape. Go to the left, to the right, find some areas. Avoid this one right here. Just pushing down on the side of our brush. Almost looks like little fingerprints. And then once I'm done adding all the purple that I want, again, you can have like 1 or 2 on either side of the brush. Falling down. I can add some white kind of highlights on top too. Like so. Again, don't forget you are going to have some greenery in there too. So be sure you're leaving some space. Then once I'm done, I give it a couple minutes to dry. I don't even have to clean off my purple. You can just add a little bit of white. Again, give it some time to dry, and then you can just sweep some bits of white on there. Just kind of a little bit of white here and there on your purple. It doesn't have to be on all of them. It adds a little bit of light to your flowers. And again, you can do as many as you want. I feel like the more you fill it up, the better it looks. All right. And once you're done with that, this is when you start putting in your leaves. So again, take your time if you're still working on your pink and your purple. Push pause on the video and come back when you're ready. All right, next thing, same old, small brush, dark green first. Dark green paint. We're gonna go in there and just add some greenery. And I like to kind of find that V shape with them sometimes too, to where they're just kind of attached to each other a little bit more. But you can also have the green, dark green kind of on its own. But if you wanted to find some areas where the leaves actually do make that V shape, that's perfectly fine. I don't have any leaves falling. It's kind of more of an upside down V. But I'm using it as a filler too. So any spot that I see that I might want to kind of add a little bit more to, and kind of go in there and add some of this darker green. I'm leaving this area alone. I'm just kind of working a little bit further out. And again, you can add as much of this green as you want. It's nice to kind of step back sometimes and look at it and see what spots you'd like filled a little bit more. And once you're done with all your green, instead of adding white on it to create light, we're gonna let it dry for a couple minutes and add some sweeps of that lighter green that we have on our plate. So instead of adding white on top of our dark green, we'll be using our lighter green to kind of sweep on top. So once you're done, give your dark green some time to dry, a couple minutes. Wash and dry your small brush, and then you're going to go into the lighter green. Again, I would truly be giving this a little bit more time. Too much on there to dry, but you're just going to go in there, just going to add some bits of lighter green here and there to kind of lighten up. And if you're still working on your dark green, take your time. You can pause the video. And it doesn't have to be on all the dark green, but you want to get a good amount on there. Perfect. All right. Awesome. You can wash and dry your brush. Take your time with all those. Once you're done with this, if you wanted to go back, you're like, oh, I do want some more purple, I do want some pink on there, you can always go back and just kind of fill it up. Just be sure your brush is nice and clean, it doesn't have any of the other colors on there. You can always, and also be aware of any wet paints, because if a wet paint touches another wet paint, they are gonna blend or mix together, so just be very careful. You can go back and add white to on top of the color. The colors of pink and purple as well. We're going to let these dry for just a moment. There is one more thing we're going to add up here, but I'm going to let the pink and purple and green dry for just a moment before we do that. Let's go back and kind of work on the jar once you're ready for it. Again, take your time, no rush. But once you're ready for the jar, I'm going to kind of go in there and work from my dark to light. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna wash and dry my small brush. I'm gonna go in there and use black on my nice clean small brush. Again, if you're working on your flowers, take your time. I'm gonna go in here and just kind of sweep some black to get rid of some of the blue and white. I want it to be a little bit more choppy over here. I don't want to see as much of a solid. I'm gonna go in there and just add a little bit of black here and there. If your black seems dry, you can always add water to it. Tap on your paper towel and go in there and just add a little bit of water on your black. So I'm just gonna add some sweeps of black here and there. Some of those lines aren't as solid. And if you don't like the way that looks, you can always go back and add more line work on top. I'm just gonna go in there and break it up just a little bit. Up here too, I'm gonna go in here and break it up with a little bit of black on my brush so I don't see as many solid lines in my jar. So I'm just going in there and using my black to kind of make some of those lines disappear a little bit here and there. So I don't want to see any solid lines with those. I want it to look a little bit more faded. So I added some black, and you can go in there and add some water to your brush, go over the black, and kind of smooth it out. Again, I went up here into the lip, just kind of added a little bit of black here and there to kind of break up some of the line work. And again, if you don't like it, if you want to go back, you're like, oh, I want it a little bit more solid, just let that black dry, and you can go back and add some sweeps of blue and white on your small brush and just let that black dry, and you can go in there and just kind of mess with it, get some of those lines back. But it does look kind of faded. It looks like you can see a lot of that black peeking through, but whatever you think is best. So once I was done with my black, I'm gonna wash and dry my small brush. I'm gonna go in there with my blue, so my dark blue, and I'm gonna wipe a lot of it off on my paper towel. So I just want a little bit of dark blue. And I'm gonna go in there, this is kind of tricky, so I would watch first. I'm gonna sweep out a little bit and out a little bit on the sides where my jar kind of folds over. So out a little bit here, out a little bit here. I'm gonna come down a little bit here too. So it almost looks like sun rays, so coming up from the lips. I'm gonna go out, out, and kind of sweep down a little bit. And I'm gonna work my way down here and there, coming down on my jar. So I'm just kind of giving it sweeps of dark blue coming down. So I came out to the left, out to the right, came down with sweeps, and then I'm gonna go in there. It's kind of, I don't want to cover up my branches, but I definitely want to create some dark blue in here. Also with your dark blue and your small brush, go ahead and go between your branches just a little bit too, so you side to side. So you can see a little bit of that dark blue in there. So I went there with black, washed my brush, went there with dark blue, kind of came down from the lip, went between the branches up here and kind of came straight down. Once I was done, I'm going to go in there with my white. I didn't even clean my brush at this point, so I'm going to have dark blue and white on my brush, tap some off on my paper towel, and I'm going to go over that dark blue just a little bit so I can see it a little bit more with some more white on my brush. So I'm just going to go in there with a little bit of white. It's going to overlap with that dark blue. So I can bring some more light. So I'm going to still add a little bit more here and there so it looks like glass. So I have my black, my dark blue, and my white. Add some more white, tap it on my paper towel and kind of go between these ones right here. So the dark blue and the white are working together a little bit more. I do want to have these sweepy lines right here. And down here you can even have some lines going a little bit kind of side to side. A little bit of a curve where your jar is going to curve. And a little bit more here, and a little bit more there. Kind of giving the shape of the jar. Go more side to side. A little bit of a curve down there too. So those are all working together. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You can go back and add some black where you might want to kind of mess with it. You can add white, you can add dark blue. Just kind of go in there and get it exactly how you want. I'm going to line up my edges just a little bit with more white. But I just kind of went back and forth. First with my black, then with my blue, then added white, and just kind of went up and down. A little bit of a curve down here, came up just a little bit as well. Perfect. And then take your time with your jar. Hope you took time with your flowers, and then we just have one more step. Now wash and dry my small brush. Make sure all that blue is off of it. Perfect. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in there with more fillers. We're just going to fill up our flowers a little bit more. Again, be wary of any wet spots. But I'm going to use my small brush and my white paint, tap some on my paper towel so I don't have too much on there. And I'm going to start with this shape right here. On the top, I'm just going to kind of be pushing up and down, side to side. I build up just a little bit too. Nice little flowers, just little fillers. I can go in here, there's a little spot right here that I feel like it's kind of empty, so kind of jumping side to side and then kind of building up a little bit as well. Some white on my small brush, tap it on my paper towel so I don't have too much on there. This is another little area that I might just want to go side to side, jumping up and down and build up a little bit. So now I'm just kind of creating invisible branches that I'm kind of jumping off of it. So white, tap on my paper towel. Build this one out just a little bit more. Maybe in here, So white, tap it on my paper towel. Just gonna jump side to side, build up a little bit more, like so. Perfect. Maybe one down here too. It looks like it's a good empty spot. So building side to side, jumping up and down, and kind of coming up a little bit more, like so. Let's do maybe one more, maybe one right here. Just kind of building side to side and building up a little bit too. So I'm just kind of jumping side to side, and then I'm going up and then coming back down. Some areas as fillers. Again, if you wanted to, you can add some further out. It's up to you, however you feel like you can fill in your space. And again, you can always go back and add more flowers, add more leaves, whatever you like. And just kind of fill your branches. Don't forget to add light to your flowers and that lighter green to your leaves as well. But otherwise, you are all done with your mason jar with flowers painting. I hope you had a good time. Take your time. You can always go back and kind of tweak with things. Thank you so much, artists, for joining us, and I hope you have a beautiful day.